Alright, being 5:15, I'd like to call the Finance Personnel Committee meeting to order. Please stand for pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move to adopt the agenda of tonight's meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Mike, seconded by Bob. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the September 4th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve the September 4th minutes. Second.
Motion been made to approve the minutes by John, seconded by Bob. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment? 2025 budget and personnel discussion. Chad?
So the reason for this item is to kind of talk about personnel situations as we move into the 2025 budget. We're actively working on that budget now. You guys have heard me in the past talk about how light we are with some staffing that we have, and how reductions over the years with levy limits and stuff have made impacts on the department. One of those things that I've mentioned in the past is looking at opportunities to, as we grow, as we're being more successful, bringing more people in here, I'm seeing the stress that we're seeing created in our building department and our zoning administration area. And the last thing I want to see is that if we continue to have the success of drawing people, drawing businesses, drawing people who want to come here to live, build houses, I don't want that roadblock in our building department and zoning administration area to occur. So one of the things we're looking at during our 2025 budget is to seeing if we can figure out how to bring another staff member into that area. Several years ago, we increased our zoning and our building permit fees in anticipation of doing something like this. And we're at the point now that we're going to see if we can try to do something. So the initial point of this conversation is just to get your feedback, to see if you're receptive of us looking at, as we're doing our 2025 budget, to see if we can look at getting another personnel into our building inspection and zoning administration process. I don't have the exact format or the exact makeup of how that would work yet. I want to do more research. But first step is to figure out if we have the money to budget for something like this, and then we can figure out how we're going to organize that department and area. There's many other communities our size and larger that have like a zoning administrator, and then the building inspector strictly works on building inspection stuff. People probably don't realize that a lot of the work in that area is zoning, and I help quite a bit with our current area just to keep the zoning aspect of it going on. I mean, fencing permits and setbacks for buildings and heights for things. There's a lot of stuff that's just zoning in that area. So first of all, let's kind of talk about, are you guys receptive to that? And then Judy will kind of pick up on a little bit more of the overall budget process and where we're at with things with that. So I don't know if you want to tie into that right away.
So Chad and I had visited about that area, as he had talked about, and I said to him, if you want to take a look at it as part of the 2025 budget process, I can do that. So he gave me a salary of, I think it was about $80,000. He did a little research. And so adding fringes and WRS and things of that nature, we are at about 113,000. What we're talking about to pay for this new position is an increase on the revenue side of permitting fees. They did do an increase in that department of the fee structure. And we've been trying to look at history to see how things are going to pan out as we move forward. So when I started looking at the budget and budgeting for this position, I went back to Chad and I said, at this point, I would be more comfortable putting in a dollar amount. And he knew it was going to take time for this all to come to fruition. Because again, he has to put a job description together. He has to do a lot of research about what does salary look like. So I went back to him and I said, how about if we put half a year, 6 months in the current budget, And then I would feel more comfortable putting that amount of revenue, so $60,000 into the assessor inspector budget, and then $60,000 addition on the revenue side in building permit fees, increase on that side. So what it does is it just, kind of X's each other out, so you have additional expenditures of 60, additional revenues in permit fees. So basically, the assessor inspection area is paying for itself. So I feel comfortable moving forward with that, but again, wanted to know, because I don't want to show up on budget night and say, there's another $60,000 in expenditures on this side. And then just kind of talk you through it, so there isn't, there's an expectation of that when we go into that budget night, which is coming up here pretty shortly.
I think we have to. I don't think, how much do we pay consulting right now?
$50,000. We are not gonna be able to get completely away from that, because there's commercial inspections.
Well, no, I understand.
Yeah.
I could be able to completely
Okay.
away from it, but at some point we probably could if we got another person in there, so these guys could actually take time to maybe future, go to school and get better. Well, Dave don't have time to walk across the street, let alone try to fit in some sort of schooling or something. If we get a younger kid in here that wants to progress himself, I see it. We're growing fast, which is awesome, but it's just way too much. Dave can't keep up.
And to Judy's point, budgeting half, so we wouldn't be looking at hiring this position until halfway through the year. Give us enough time to keep an eye on the budget, just make sure things are trending right on the budget side of it. But that also gives us time to do some research to see the best scenario for how we want to organize, those positions together, whether one reports to another. Gives us some time to kind of research that and figure out what's best for us.
So you can anticipate that, coming to finance and personnel. March, probably April, something of that nature. We would definitely have a say in whether that moves forward or not. And again, it's a positive on one side and negative on another. So it's not going to have any budget impact, except to have additional revenues if the expenditure side isn't approved. And it will go through finance and personnel and then go to council for final approval.
Is it possible that you could have somebody part-time, say maybe that does this job all the time, that's say retired or something, it would work part-time or something? Is that a possibility or not?
I think there's too much. There's so much that phone is ringing off the hook. People are coming in all the time. Dave's constantly coming to my office, ask, we're collaborating on, zoning issues and questions, things like that. I think we want to be responsive to developers and people so that people aren't waiting 2, 3, 4 weeks for a response for things just because we're so inundated. I think that'll turn people away, and that might wreck us for seeing some additional growth. If developers don't like the response that we're giving them, they might not continue developing here. That's the last thing I want to see.
I would like to know just what that person's gonna do. When we tried to hire a building inspector, we had a heck of a time finding somebody that had the qualifications to go out and do any of this stuff.
And that's a very good point. And one of the reasons why to split it up, I've heard after the fact, when we hired Dave, the position right now takes care of all the zoning administration, all the building inspection permits and things, and then code enforcement. Way too much for one person to do that. And after we tried to hire the last round, we had 4 applicants. Basically, the other 3 applicants were old builders that couldn't even turn on a computer for the most part. So, Dave was the only one qualified that had some experience in that realm. And after the fact, I kind of researched a little bit more, and I heard trying to find somebody to do all our zoning and all our building inspection in one person, that's hard. That's too much. So to your point, trying to get someone to maybe command the department, oversee the department, and takes care of all the zoning. And then to Dave's point, initially trying to get a building inspector that has all 4 certifications for the residential side. Because the residential side and the commercial side, you need the construction, you need the plumbing, the electrical, and the HVAC or mechanical. So to have everything, that's 4 certifications, and that's a lot. So I think to start off with, if we can get somebody in the department that has all 4 of those residential trade certifications, that's a good start. And then if we can continue, if that person can get some of the commercial side stuff too, that's even better.
Would he go out and do more? Going out and looking at stuff? I mean, you can see building going on in the city that I thought we have applications for all kinds of stuff like fences and any addition to your building. I don't know that everybody is taking out permits for all this stuff.
Says Dave don't have time to enforce anything.
And that's where
That's the third
Adam-
step that
Adam
nobody
Survey
does.
comes in too. He catches a lot of that as well.
All of a sudden, what are we gonna rely on our assessor
Yes.
to go out and look at all these buildings?
Well, and to the point of that, why it's so important for us to catch all that stuff is that then Adam stays current on all those things. If we're not have the ability to kind of go out and make sure that we're catching all that stuff, then Adam's not catching it on the assessor side, and then we get behind.
We're going to have a full-scale assessor where
Mhm.
he is going to have to go out and look at everything, and yet the law says you don't have to let him in your house.
Correct. And actually, our next our next reeval, we're actually talking about just doing a market rate assessment, not going out and checking out every buildings, because Adam feels at this point in time, he feels comfortable that he's been keeping up with stuff. We don't want to get behind, but he feels we're comfortable enough that he's caught 99% of the stuff, that it's just a market readjustment, that everybody gets changed on a market value, not reassessing and looking at every single property.
To your point, Mike, there's a lot of stuff that has gone on that, builds in town that we can see from the outside. Decks have been put up, fences have been put up, sheds have been put in backyards, all those different things have happened. And like you said, I'm not seeing any permits hanging in any windows. So just having somebody come in that position who could assess those things and make sure that those things have been taken care of, and we're adjusting properly that way.
Well,
At that point in time but that would be something they could do down the road.
And
with
hopefully
that.
having staff availability to go out more. Dave can't just go out and check things out.
No.
Just go look for stuff, no way. So having more staff available, that they're out there in the field more, maybe they're catching more things and seeing things.
Well, and Dave has a hard enough time just going out and taking a look at the things that get reported.
Correct.
He doesn't have time for that even.
Mhm.
It's
I'd like to see it go the other way. Try to find a guy that can do both. That we're not paying consultant either. That's another 50,000 that you could use towards.
Mhm. I think in the end, yeah. I think
I think-
initially I'd like to see someone with all the residential.
I'd
And then
like
if
to
we can
find
get
one with
somebody-
both right away, because you're gonna have a lot of commercial going up here shortly.
Mm-hmm.
That 50,000 is not gonna be enough.
And if we can find somebody that has all of it right away,
be
awesome.
awesome.
My fear is that the market is so tight. Wapaka had their building inspection position open for 2 rounds because they couldn't get anyone. I think there's not a lot of building inspectors out there. There's not a tech school doesn't have a building inspector program. There's no program out there. You basically do your self education, you go get your certifications from the state, and now you're a building inspector. So if we can find somebody with that, that's awesome. But we might have to do the point, depending on what the market is, get somebody who's got the residential side and incentivize them to go get the commercial side, and then we can keep it all in-house, which is a very good idea.
Anything else?
Otherwise, we'll continue to budget with that in there, and I mean, you'll see it
Yep.
come through.
You'll see and I'll talk about it as I go through the budget process, probably more than once. Try to hit everything twice, especially anything that has changed from year to year. So you'll hear me talk about both the revenue and expenditure side at least a couple times during that presentation and the position.
Okay, moving on to the monthly financial reports, Judy.
All right, so we are in August, so we're almost 3/4 of the way through the year, 1 month short. So we should be at about 66.67%. And you can see that most of our expenditure categories are falling into that area. We did have utilities dollars come in for insurance. It still seems a little high, but we do get a dividend payment at the end of the year. So workers' comp still has to be paid out of here. You're gonna see it go back over 100 and then that will come back down probably closer to January, February, actually, of next year. Otherwise, we knew that equipment replacement would go over. We anticipated that to be 800 and some thousand, so there must be something that is still out there that is going to be purchased. But otherwise, we're doing well in the social services. That most of that is our celebrations, our fireworks, so those have been paid for. I don't anticipate that one to go over either. So any questions on the expenditure side? All right, then we'll look at the revenues. These also are looking good. The only thing we have is on this side, just, you know, the negative is actually a good thing, which means we've collected more money than anticipated. And you can see right here is what I was talking about. And on the license and permit side, we have $63,000 more than we anticipated. Doesn't mean it's all building related, but a lion's share of that is building related. And then we had some grants and donations. A lot of this has to do with our Park and Recreation Department. They received a $15,000 grant. And then you can see that our interest is already over what was anticipated by $12,000. Again, I do not anticipate any of these revenues not to come in. You can see we've collected our property taxes in full. And then our tax equivalents, those also come in late in the year. So more like December and January. Any questions on any of the revenues? So we'll move on to the assigned and unassigned fund balance. There you go. And on this one too, there has not been any changes. Looks like they go through here. No changes as of today on any of these, so same as last year. Or I mean last month. Say last year, last month. Any questions on any of those assigned or unassigned fund balance? We have the wheel tax. We've collected $69,000 this year. We've spent 66 on the house Alcan Engineering. So we have about 2,488 in there. So we had 133,000 from last year. So actually we have 135. We have some other projects, the Wolf River Development and North Street grant that will be coming out of here also. So they just have not been started yet. I know I had talked to Robert. I'm like, why does this say 66 and this says 50? And he said, we'll bill the township. We're paying the engineering upfront and then we'll bill them when it's over. So then we have our bonding schedule and we have about 970,000 left in there. As we know, 500, that's the library. And then the rest is for TID 5. So our road is not completed yet. And once that is completed, we will see this depleted to 0. This is all paid in full. And that is it for my financial statements. Do you have any discussion on that or any questions? I could take those. Otherwise, I can talk about what I've been doing. And as you know, my lion's share of my time right now is spent on the 2025 budget process. I spend a lot of time clarifying and talking to people about the information that they handed in as far as their departments are concerned. It can be something as simple as, you know, lines are not matching up properly or numbers aren't, you know, adding up for me as they added up for them. So we have a lot of conversation about that. Or if my estimates in my head look differently than what comes in, then we have a conversation about that. So we talk about budgeting a lot in our office now. I updated the financial information to the 7 and to the 5 amendments for the joint review board. I attended a finance and civic board meeting, and in those I reviewed their budget actually for 2025. We're still working on that. Finalized the health insurance plan. As you know, that information came to you guys for approval. And then Stephanie and I worked on the employee meetings and with the United Healthcare. And then Stephanie is still working on that enrollment process. She just got those cards actually yesterday, and anybody who had an appointment, she was able to at least get them a group number so that when they went in for their appointments, they could bring that with them. Working through a number of human resources policies, and you may see those come forward actually next month if we can get those finished. I did attend an online municipal treasurers meeting. I always say I prefer these in person. I get more out of them than when I'm sitting behind a computer, but it was still good information. We had our wellness lunch and learn, and the next challenge was kicked off on the 22nd. All the employees attended a reasonable suspicion training. It's easy for you to say. And then continue to work on the payroll processing system and trying to see what we can do to make that process a little more efficient. And at the end of the day, we're trying to give Stephanie a little bit more time to work on human resource policies. So just give her a little bit more time on the human resource side than the payroll side and making that more efficient. So that's our goal as we work through that payroll processing area. Any questions? You're welcome.
Make a motion to move into closed session for the following statutory exemptions: 19.85 subsection C. Considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which a governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility regarding contract negotiations with the New London Police Association Union, Local 232. Those invited in the closed session are Finance Committee, Common Council, Mayor Mark Herter, Police Chief Jeff Schleter, Finance Director Judy Radke, and City Administrator Chad Horton.
I'll second that.
Motion been made by second by Bob. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?